Welcome everyone. We have a really good program for you guys today. Um, this is uh, a great opportunity we've been doing. Can you make me the host as well, Melissa, just for right now until we hand it over to Montgomery County's procurement office? Okay. All right. Give everyone some time to come in. Everyone some time to come in. This has been a jam-packed month for government contracting. Um, First of all, welcome to everyone. We have a lot of good content for you today. We've been providing a lot of value to our membership and just the community in general. So today's program, we are talking about doing business with Montgomery County, and we have their Office of Procurement with us. Again, another great program put on by the Chamber. I do want to get a feedback for some feel for who we have in the audience. So in the chat, really quickly, if you could put a thumbs up if you are a member. We have 17 people in there. If you're already a member of the Chamber, just go ahead and drop a thumbs up in the chat, just so we can know who we actually have that are members in the audience. Awesome. Okay. If you're not a member, this is a perfect time to join. Let me introduce myself. I'm Nelson. I'm the board chair for the Maryland Black Chamber of Commerce. And we are doing a lot of great things, I can tell you. We are set to launch our new website, which is going to be adding a tremendous amount of value for our members. We've been offering a lot of these webinars and content free of charge to the community. We'll continue to do that, but we're going to have a lot more options available for members, like being able to replay and review a lot of the videos that we do. So if you do miss something like this, you'll be able to go back and rewatch it and just go through our video library to watch some of the content that we've been able to put out. So if you're not a member, we just put it in there to go join. Just some housekeeping things real quick. We do have a networking event, some events coming up, a networking event on the 30th with the Financial Services Affinity Group of the Chamber. Great event if you looking to connect with some financial service professionals. Maybe you're looking for an accountant. Maybe you are an accountant. Maybe you're in the banking industry. Great event to connect with. That's going to be on March 30th at Matchbox in Rockville. You can join our Eventbrite, subscribe to our Eventbrite to get more information. Okay, today we're doing business with Montgomery County. And we have a whole series of government contracting webinars coming up on April 11th, April 25th, May 9th. Melissa, do we have that flyer ready? We may not have it ready, but you just need to start subscribing to our newsletter, becoming a member, checking our calendar for these events from April all the way to June. Every month, at least twice a month, we'll be having a webinar series on government contracting. Okay, I want to get another feel for who we have in the office. How many people are MBE certified as a minority business already? If you are, can you just put your thumbs up in there? I want to give our audience an idea, our presenters an idea of who we have in the audience. If you're already certified to do business in the county, put a thumbs up. Okay, awesome. All right, we have one person so far. If you are you're thinking about going or you're in the process of, volume is really low. Let me see if I could.
We seem to have lost audio completely.
Oh, there you go. I was on mute. How's this? Is this better?
It's about
All
the
right,
same.
awesome. Okay, all right, great. Well, I'm not here to speak. I'm going to give the floor over. It seems like we have a few government contracts in there. Join the chamber. Follow our Eventbrite. But who we have here today is the Office of Procurement from Montgomery County. And the first person we're going to bring up is Ash. And this is someone you want to pay attention to and listen to. He is responsible for signing over about 1 billion annually in spend. So if you're in the government contracting space, if someone who knows about the process and who can give us information on the process is Ash. So I'm going to go ahead and hand over the program to Ash and his office. Um, there you go, Ash. And then why don't we go ahead and make him the host? So if he needs to share or anything like that, Melissa. So Ash, the floor is yours. I'm going to sit back and listen and learn as well.
Great. I think Melissa from my team will probably be sharing a slide deck.
Okay. Okay.
The part that I cover, honestly, you don't really need it. You will need it when Melissa starts speaking. There you go. So we have the slide deck up if you can see it. Good morning, everybody. My name is Ash. I am the director of the Office of Procurement. If you had joined us last week, then you've already heard my voice and seen my face, although my voice this week might sound different because I apparently have developed seasonal allergies. But I am happy to be here with you one more time, like I had done last week. I will quickly set the stage for you and then hand it off to my operations division chief, Melissa Gardner, who, like I had said last week, is not only the head of my operations division in procurement today, but actually was on the management team for the procurement, the contract administrators in the Department of Transportation. So she's got just this very wide perspective on doing business with Montgomery County, both from the compliance side, from the Office of Procurement side, as well as from a contract administrator's perspective. So to quickly recap some of the things I said last time, but I think these are important because I feel like you cannot ever overemphasize your values enough. The Office of Procurement obviously is in the business of making sure that we acquire goods and services in a free and transparent manner to allow the county to achieve its priorities through the partnerships with vendors. But we do it in a way that we always make sure is empathetic. That is, we respect our vendors, we respect our business partners, we respect each other as colleagues. We understand that everybody has constraints, priorities, concerns, and we try to be as human as possible in how we treat one another. Transparency is obviously very important to us. We are, at the end of the day, managing taxpayer money. This is not ours to spend. It is the trust of the taxpayers that allows us to take care of this. And so we make sure that we provide all the information that is required in a way that is useful, so that everything we do is recognized as being above board. An office like ours has to collaborate. We work with the vendor community, we work with the various chambers like we're doing today, and are appreciative for the chance to have access to this audience. We work with the different using departments in the county to understand what they need. So collaboration is just core to our mission. And lastly, efficiency, which you cannot. Just a reminder for everybody on the line: if you're not speaking, to please mute yourself. So an efficiency, of course, which is part of everything we have to do. In fact, yesterday we presented the county's budget, and the one thing that we all have an obligation to do as public servants is to spend money in a way that allows us to get the most value for it. And being efficient in our own operations is just the start. Those of you who saw the solicitation tracker last week, and I'm not sure that Melissa will go into a deep dive of it again today, but that's the tool that essentially, like a pizza tracker, shows you where a solicitation is once we received it. As Grace said, it used to be that we were seen as this black box where if you sent a submission, a solicitation in, you didn't know what was happening to it. Today, you can just Google solicitation tracker. We're one of a kind, so it's the only one that will show up. You will enter the name of the solicitation you participated in. It'll give you a full status report. You think about that tool, it basically embodies everything listed here, right? It is efficient in that we don't have to, you don't need to find us. We don't have to reach out to you. You can self-serve and get all the information you need. Yet we do have the contract administrator's information there. We have the procurement specialist information in there. We're being fully transparent. If a solicitation is delayed, you see that tracker turns red. Again, just letting you know what we've always known, but making sure that you can have it when you need it in a useful way. It allows us to be better partners to you in a spirit of collaboration. And I truly believe that that tool was designed with the perspective of empathy. We realize that a lot of our vendors have a lot riding on the solicitations they submit. And we want to make sure that you have access to information about them as we do it. So going on to the next slide very quickly. In today's session, we will quickly cover with you what our organization looks like, just to set the context. We'll talk about what the operations division does, which is, again, the division within my office that Melissa Gardner heads up. We will talk about the different types of procurements and the thresholds that affect those, because, again, the amount of due diligence, the amount of time something takes is very dependent on how much money is involved. We'll talk about what our different workflows look like, again, just so that you have that insider's perspective. You'll notice that the screenshots we have are from our website, but we want it to be transparent that certain steps just take us longer to complete the due diligence. And you'll get a sense of what that looks like from somebody who manages that process end to end. And then finally, we want to leave you with some of the best practices that we've seen and observed. So we will share some information about best practices and how to submit effective proposals and successful bids. And we'll talk a little bit about the pre-bid, pre-submission conferences and how you can take advantage of those as well. So that's just a quick overview of what we're going to show you. Jumping along very quickly, I want to show you the org structure of this office, again, just to give you some perspective on who you are going to be talking to today versus who you spoke with last week. Now, you'll see that within the Office of Procurement, we obviously work for the taxpayers of Montgomery County. You've got three teams. The far right-hand side is headed up by Grace Deno. She is the lady who spoke with you last week. This was about all of our different socioeconomic programs. We have a minority female disabled program. Like I mentioned, we spent $212 million last year with our minority female disabled owned businesses. We have a local business program. In fact, we have several local business programs, a preference program, a subcontracting program, all of those, and a reserve program. All of those are part of Grace's world. And, she talked about those with you last week. In the center, of course, is our central services team, which essentially allows us to keep the office running. It's our IT support, our HR support, our administrative support. We are a public-facing office, so we obviously have customer service responsibilities as well as MPIA responsibilities. MPIA, for those of you who are unfamiliar, is Maryland Public Information Act, which is very similar to the Federal Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, as some people know it. Now, lastly, you have the operations team, which, just looking at this visually, you can tell is the bulk of where our resources are. These are the folks who are in the business of getting procurements through. When we talk about facilitating procurements in a fair and transparent manner, these are the folks that make sure that is happening. Often there's this misconception that if you think that something is unfair, you shouldn't talk to these people because they are the people who did it. On the contrary, Melissa's team is tasked with making sure that the way things are done is in compliance with our regulations, processes, and procedures. So if you ever have any concerns, the specialists and folks like Melissa and her managers are your ally. They're the people who will help you understand what happened, not the people who are going to get defensive about it. With that said, and again, at the bottom of this, I hate that it's an alphabet soup, but you get a sense of the different departments that each of those teams is responsible for, and you'll see codes like POL that stands for police, or TEBS that stands for, it's basically our technology office. It's technology and enterprise business solutions. But that's the team that you're going to essentially be learning more about in today's conversation, like I said in the agenda. I'll kick off the next slide, and then I'll pass it on to Melissa so that I'm not cannibalizing too much of what she was going to cover. But essentially, this team is responsible for an annual spend of over $1 billion. That's actually each year the volume that is renewed or added, but in all there's about $5 billion worth of contracts that are being administered by this team in terms of purchase orders and amendments and things like that. Number of active contracts, as you can see, is just greater than 2,800. We have about 10,000 procurement actions each year on those 2,800 contracts. The team is comprised of 17 procurement specialists. Again, the folks who make sure that the trains are running on time across the different departments that you saw. And it's about 40 departments. And 3 managers who essentially have signature authority to approve those transactions. And each specialist manages about 160 contracts, just to do the math. So they're by no means not busy individuals, but they're definitely some of the most hardworking people I've worked with in my career. With that, not wanting to steal Melissa's thunder, I'm actually going to stop right there and let Melissa tell you more about her division, what they do, what they're responsible for, and how they can be of service.
Thanks, Ash. Good morning, everyone. Like Ash said, I'm the Division Chief of Operations. So I will give you a rundown of what it is we do. And as he showed you at the beginning on our agenda, we'll be touching base on some things that could help you out, some resources that would benefit you the most as a vendor. And I'll also be ending it with sharing my screen of our procurement home website, so I can show you exactly where you could go to get some of this information that could be most beneficial to you. So what does our division of operations do? We make sure we cover the purchasing of goods, services, and construction. The departments need something, and so we make sure that as Ash says, we keep the train running. It all starts at the department level because they're the ones that are the subject matter experts. They have their needs. They know, what specifics they need to receive for them to do their job the best. And then our job is to work with them. And once they submit the information that they have, we help them get through the process of making sure that, again, we monitor all of the compliance issues that are required for through the county code and procurement regulations. So we just make sure that essentially we help them to get what they need, but we make sure that we all do it in the right way and the most transparent, etc. Then the other things that we do is we assist the departments in development of procurement strategies. And when I say that is, not every department even knows exactly what they need to do to get to where they need to be. So if they're like, hey, I need to buy a bunch of forks, then they could come to us and we would brainstorm with them. What's the best way for you to do this? What's the best way for you to get what you need at the best value in the time frame you need it? And so we would help give them some guidance on, which procurement method to go and how to set it up or how to build it out so that they can get the best of the vendors that are out there. The other parts are ensuring a competitive, transparent, and fair procurement. Like I mentioned a minute ago, we're responsible for ensuring the compliance of the county code and procurement regulations. There are a lot of T's that need to be crossed and a lot of I's that need to be dotted. And we have our eyes on that type of information to make sure that we're going down the right road and we're all going to get in, to the end point in the best manner possible while making sure we follow all of the requirements from our end. The other thing that we do, and I like to say that we have kind of boosted this up a little bit over the past year, but we provide training, assistance, and guidance to contract administrators and vendors. Last July, we started a monthly training session countywide for our contract administrators, MLS staff, as well as any supporting staff that really deals with any part of procurement. We did this because, I recognized, again, as I had been in the departments before, so I was a user of the process. I recognized that there was a lot of information that existed, but wasn't necessarily put out there, whether it be somebody didn't know where to look for it or somebody, just never really had to use it before. So if you don't use it, you don't know it exists, and you don't really know how to get there. So what we're doing is we're doing these monthly trainings to make sure that all aspects of procurement are understood, not just by our office, but also the departments. It's a lot of information, and if you don't use it all the time, it is sometimes overwhelming. I mean, I know that from the vendor's perspective, y'all can understand that as well. You know, if you aren't in the depths of creating solicitations and you have to be thrown in there, like, it's a lot of information to process. So this is our attempt to just kind of push some information out there, any changes, any updates, any specific items that people really need to pay attention to, etc. We develop guidelines and tools to assist the workflow and processes for various procurement actions. So again, I'll show you the workflow charts that just gives the departments an idea of exactly what goes on. And then, you know, we have certain checklists for certain types of procurement actions and everything. So we try to build things out and provide the resources as best as we can for the departments. We provide department or division specific training whenever it's requested. And with that, it's, you know, not every department has to take the same perspective in how they approach things. So if there are some very particular things, like if somebody has a lot of grants and we need to maneuver through the grant process also, you know, there are some more specific things that we get into with some certain departments if they need that help. Brainstorming and assist contract administrators with complex procurements. This kind of ties back to, you know, the monthly training. Is if you don't really know how to maneuver through it yourself, then, you know, we're the ones that have the best information and can give the best guidance for that. So, you know, we'll set up individual times to work with the departments and, you know, understand their needs, understand what type of roadblocks they run into for, you know, whatever the goods, services, or construction it is they have, and again, work with them to find the best procurement method to work through those things. Then on the vendor side, we provide training during the open houses. I'm sure Grace and Bethany mentioned it last week, but we have monthly open houses on the third Wednesday of every month. And what we've been doing is, this past year, we've been trading off every other month, where the Division of Business Relations and Compliance will cover some sort of topic for them. And then the next month, it'll be something on operations. So if you are interested in those, by all means, come and enjoy the information that you can receive, because similar to the monthly training I do for contract administrators, it's the same thing. We're putting information out there. We're trying to be as helpful to those who want to attend as possible. And then we're always available to the vendors for questions, whether it's related to specific solicitations that may be out, or you may know are coming out, or were awarded, or if it's just the general procurement process altogether. Like, I don't understand this piece. Can you please explain it to me and why I haven't heard about X, Y, or Z? So we're there to help you on that. On the next one, you know, we're going to jump into procurement methods. I will start by saying I do not expect you to have super impressive visual skills to read those workflow charts. I just put them up there as a general visual, but I will touch base on that at the end of this when I'm working through our website, because it is available on our website. But I just wanted to throw it out there when we're talking about the workflows. But what I'm going to cover are our most common procurement methods. There are definitely other procurement methods than these, but they're the more particular, like bridge contracts or public entity contracts. And it gets a little bit further away from direct vendor interaction, so to speak. I'm not sure if that's the best way to explain it, but the ones that I'm going to talk through are the ones that y'all would be heavily involved and interested in, because they're the more regular, you know, everyday types of solicitations that we do. So on the formal side of things, Ash mentioned, you know, depending upon what the thresholds are and the dollar amounts depends upon how we approach some of our procurements. The formal solicitations include the IFBs, the RFPs, and the REOIs. These are all considered formal because they're above a $100,000 threshold. So anything over the lifespan of a contract, not just for a year, but if it's a 1 year plus 2 1-year renewal options, then that means over that lifespan of 3 years, If it's above 100,000, then it has to go through the formal process. That's where you're going to see the larger solicitations that are posted with more information, because they're obviously going to be way more in depth. And the IFBs are the ones where our mechanism for award is the lowest bid. That's where you give your best prices, and then that's how we work through the method of award. But on the RFPs is where we go for the quality. Also, you can provide a proposal, and there's evaluation criteria within each of them. That a QSC, which is a committee that reviews all the proposals, they go through and they do the the evaluation of how your proposal meets to their criteria, and then they rank them. And depending upon the RFP, it could be just a written, or it could be a written and an interview. So I'll get into it a little bit later, but some of the details within these are really key to pay attention to. And then the REOIs, it's a request for expression of interest. Ultimately, this is a piece that kind of is right before potential RFPs. So if any of our departments are like, I kind of know what I want, like I know what that end point is, but I don't know what's out there. I don't know how I'd get there. Don't even know how to build a solicitation from it, because it's something new we're trying. An REOI is something that we can put out there, and what it does is it shortlists people for a following RFP or potential RFP. So that way they're able to put out saying like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. Send me your proposal on how you could get it done, what type of information you would use, what type of technology, et cetera, all depending upon what the needs are. And then from that, you would still have a QSC that would then go through and look at the proposals and say, okay, of all of the things that I received, these are the ones that seem they would fit the best. So then what that does is when they determine that can shortlist those vendors. And once they're shortlisted, we put together an RFP, we put it out, but it will only be for those vendors to respond to, where it'll be more of those technical expectations that the department finally understands what they can even ask for, and then it gets into more detail for that. So just that's a kind of precursor to potential RFPs. Jumping into the informal solicitations, the threshold for these are $10,000, between $10,000 and $100,000. That's what it covers. Again, this is covering the lifespan of a contract. So if somebody has a need and for 1 year it's $20,000 and they want additional 2 years, that's $60,000. So you're still under that threshold and they can take this approach. There are a handful of things that make this different. One, everything that's put out under informal solicitations are required to go out first as LSBRP. If they don't receive any responses from local small businesses, then they can re-advertise it and put it out for any vendor that is interested in participating in that response. Anything above 50,000, any value of an informal above 50,000 is subject to MFD requirements. And then any services contract above 50,000 would be subject to the wage requirements. The key thing about informals is that this is heavily handled by the departments. Because it's a smaller threshold, they have more of the responsibility of the development, the posting, etc. We help them through the needs on the side of compliance and what how to set the expectations. But you'll see there, if you're on our website and you go to our postings, you'll see that ultimately all the informal postings will take you to a department site where they have it posted. So we post it for the public knowledge on our website, but they are ultimately the ones that handle receiving everything, looking at it, and then submitting to us whatever their recommendation for reward is. Then we get to direct purchases. This is where the department buys directly to a vendor. This is only for values that are 10,000 or less. With it being the smaller value, if they need something that's going to be a $4,000 purchase and that's it, then there's no need to put a real formal solicitation together or informal, because I just need something for $4,000 and we're good. So this gives them the opportunity to cover smaller purchases without having to go into the extreme, you know, the more extended effort for actual solicitations. On open solicitations, this is where we get into something that is fixed pricing, and I have open until fill concept. So open solicitations are exactly what they mean. They're posted on our website, they're posted on the department's website, and they are open. Anybody who is in good standing with the state of Maryland, who is able to perform these things and willing to essentially take the terms and conditions and all the requirements of the open solicitation, and you say sign me up, then you feel free to put something in, and the department, depending upon their need, can get as many people as they want. Or if they get to a point where they're like, okay, we have enough vendors to cover this, they have the ability to take it down off the website. And then that's where I'm saying like open until filled. But there are some that sit on the website forever because departments are like, come on board. If you want to do this, we'll take you on and we'll work through the process with you. And then the specific purchasing categories we have are the goods, services, and construction. Goods being your materials, services being like, the professional services for architectures or engineers and designs and stuff like that. And then you have the construction where it's the construction of whether it's vertical or horizontal. Those are the bigger build out constructions. And I will say that you will see that between DGS and DOT, which are the primary ones with construction, also DEP has some stuff in there. Those are the bigger departments that really get into that. But there are various methods of how they do, not methods of procurement, but just various types of contracts that they use. So you'll see some design build, you'll see some that are contractor at risk. So that kind of crosses the gamut when you get into construction. On the next slide. All right, this gets into your tips for how to do business with us and the things to think about when you're either writing proposals or submitting bids. I'll try to go through this quickly, but if I get too long-winded, I'll try to scale back a little bit. But like in general, the key thing is pay attention to all the details. So on your appearance, the proposal package is clearly labeled with the solicitation number. So everybody knows exactly what that's for. There's no confusion. Make sure you include your contact information because whatever happens, like if we need to reach out to somebody specific to that solicitation, we need to make sure who that right contact person is. Make sure it's organized into sections based on the RFP requirements. So each RFP is going to be broken down however it is the department needs it. So if they have 10 sections and each one of those sections is labeled for some particular piece of what they expect in a proposal, just mirror that, because then it keeps them in a apples to apples order when they're reviewing things. So it doesn't hurt just to follow the order in which they're doing it. And if you just label it to that, then it makes it a lot easier working through that review. And then the proposal is neatly packaged. If you have stuff in order and it's organized and it's clean and clear, obviously way better for us to be able to get through it quicker. If things are kind of jumbled and all over the place and not really having any flow, then as they're going through their expectations and if they have to jump back and forth, it could just take longer. Proposal accuracy. So one key thing to know is the due date and time are very particular. It will be listed in the solicitation. Your proposal must be submitted by that due date and time. If it's 3 o'clock on Thursday, March 16th, that's the due date, then if you try to submit it at 3:01 on March 16th, it will not be accepted. And we do the e-bidding process through BidNet, so it will literally not even accept it if you try to hit the submit button. So please do not wait until the last minute to try to put proposals in, because if anything should happen where you run into technical difficulties or whatever, we have information in all of the solicitations on who to reach out to with BidNet. But if there is some problem with your submission and it doesn't take it by that time, there's nothing we could do. We aren't able to open it back up. The proposal submission directions and requirements are verified. Make sure, this is the details, make sure when you read through it, you see exactly what is being required for your bid submission. Is there a bond? Is there financial information? Are there resumes required? The whole nine. Make sure you're covering those details. Solicitation amendments are verified if there are any for material and non-material updates. So you have to acknowledge all solicitation amendments that were provided. It is a vendor's responsibility to make sure that they check if there are any solicitations provided for the one that you're interested in. If you go through BidNet and you are a vendor registered and you have submitted anything, or if you're registered for, or if you have downloaded a specific solicitation, if your information is put incorrect for contacting, then you will receive a notification if a solicitation amendment's been posted. But if you don't put correct information on there for your contact information, then you're going to have to make sure you check our website to see if that solicitation has anything for updates, whether it be on the material side, somebody asked a question and so we have to clarify, a certain requirement, or the non-material side of if the department determined that they need extra time, like the vendors need extra time and so they want to extend it, then it might just be a solicitation amendment for extension to add more days to the posting. But you are required to acknowledge all of those for your submissions. And then proposal package review to ensure completeness and required submissions included. That kind of touches back to the directions and requirements. Like, just read through, fine print, the whole thing, make sure, like, you can have a checklist and make sure you just check off every single one of them so that you're not missing something that may be required at the time of submission. And then as for the content, make sure it's complete, concise, and including the description for each submission item. Because if you just put a piece of paper in there and it has general information to a response of something within the RFP, if you have like a connection, again, going back to that section labeling, right? If section A or 1A is requiring this, then you can note it as section 1A, resumes or something. But if it's clear and presented that way, then it's much more helpful to us when we're reviewing it. Include resumes, writing samples, and other required submission. These are just examples of some things. Every RFP is going to be different. So don't assume if you've done one RFP for DGS and they put another one out that it's going to be exactly the same. There are going to be different needs. And then especially if you're going across different departments, there are going to be different needs. So make sure you really pay attention to what their requirements are. Some might require financial information, and some may not even ask for a whole lot of detail. So just pay attention to that. The proposal reflects emphasis on evaluation criteria areas. If you're worried about how am I supposed to respond to this, a key factor is look at the evaluation criteria, and that will tell you what the department cares about most. And it will have different points associated to it. So if there is a evaluation criteria that is 50 points out of 100, I highly recommend you really focus and make sure you have that section covered. If there's something that's 5%, obviously still respond to it, but you just have to pay attention to what's going to be weighed more. I wouldn't necessarily put as Grace, just so you know, the PowerPoint was missing. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. But sorry, I've got to go jump back. Oh, the criteria areas. If it's something that's 5% and say you have 10 days to do it, I would not recommend you spending 5 days on the 5%. I would recommend you looking at the 50 or the 5 points. I would recommend you looking at the 50 and making sure you have put all your effort into that. The proposal separates supporting documentation such as annual reports, company literature, etc. Basically, if they're asking for certain attachments of some sort, make sure that they're organized as an appendix. And then the proposal indicates clear understanding of the requirements and project scope. If you're responding to an RFP and the information that you provide does not connect, like if it is not clear and the response you give to the department, they look at it and they're like, I'm not really sure how this matches up, that's not going to be favorable. So just make sure that when you're doing this, you're speaking the same language as what the department has put out there in the RFP. All right, so jumping to the next slide. One back. Yeah, okay, successful bidding. IFBs are pretty, they're way more straightforward. It's lowest price, there's not this long drawn out, hey, can you provide a full proposal on how you're going to do X, Y, and Z? It's just the department needs this. They need to know how much they can purchase it at. They need to know what their access is to catalogs. They need to know, if you're able to meet the technical requirements or technical specifications that might be in there. But it's less of an extensive process. So again, pay attention to the details. Make sure on an IFB that you are clear on the method of award. There may be multiple vendor awards planned for this. So it may be a primary, secondary, tertiary thing. If you get the second lowest bid and you're secondary, you need to know, does that mean that there's a rotating basis? So the primary is going to get it first and then it goes to the next. Or does that mean if the primary vendor can't perform, is that when you'll get the work? That's something that had gone on with some of my contracts where there seemed to be some confusion, and some vendors were getting frustrated because they're like, well, I was secondary, but I don't understand why I'm getting no work at all. Well, the requirements of the method of award and then the way that we were going to be doing, the ordering and everything was if the primary couldn't perform. So you could very well run into IFBs that does not guarantee you any work. So pay attention to those types of things. Ensure you respond to the requirements of the quotation sheet. This gets kind of across the gamut to each department, each division of a department. They all look at things differently. Some list specific items. We cannot require specific brands or manufacturers or whatever. Like we can't just say, I need you to provide a John Deere. But what we can do is say, we need you to provide a John Deere or equivalent. So just be aware of that. If anybody does put some sort of brand names in there, it's also equivalent. So if they have those types of details, just understand that you have to find that equivalency based on the spec, that what it can perform, etc. But each of the quotation sheets could have different things. It could be asking for percentage catalog discount. Some may say that the percentage on a catalog discount is optional. Some may say that the percentage on a catalog discount is required to be, to be considered responsive. Also, the delivery schedules. There are a lot of different things that you just need to make sure you pay attention to as to how that department wants things for that specific IFB. Read technical specifications carefully. That's on the back end. People will have technical specs if they have a certain type of job that they need done, and they need it done in a more specific way, but it kind of still doesn't lock down the means and method of a vendor. You just have to make sure that you pay attention to that and that you're able to actually meet those requirements. Ask questions in a timely manner. I can touch base on that in the pre-submission and pre-bid conference. And the bid package accuracy. This goes back to the same thing as the RFPs. Date and time, directions and requirements, amendments are verified, and that you have completeness and required submissions included. Any attachments, catalogs, there's a catalog discount price. The likelihood is there that you have to provide a catalog or a link to a catalog or whatever. references. If they say we need to have 5 references of government agencies that you've performed work for before, make sure you have those references. All right, next one. All right, getting into the pre-bid, pre-submission conference. What is it? What's going to go on? That is where a department will set up a pre-bid or pre-submission conference to cover that specific solicitation. You'll be introduced to the county staff, the department contract administrators, and their subject matter experts are typically there. And then you'll also meet who the procurement specialist is for that solicitation and the DDRC program managers. They'll run through the expectations for each of the programs that may be applicable to that solicitation. The other thing that they'll go through is any details for the specific solicitation, the method of award, the any technical specs that have to be met, the specific requirements of the quotation sheets or any of those details. They'll typically cover that type of information. They'll review the scope to make sure everybody understands what they need. It's an opportunity to ask the questions and get clarifications. So if you've already downloaded a solicitation and you've read through it and you're like, that really doesn't make sense to me. Well, if there's a pre-submission or pre-bid conference for that, I highly recommend you utilize that opportunity to take your question and say, hey, I read this part. Can somebody please explain this further as to what your expectation is for this? Or what do you mean by we have to go and rate leaves? Like, I'm just random throwing that out there. But if there's any confusion, that's when you need to ask. And it's also an opportunity to learn about other vendors that may be interested in solicitation. So not necessarily there's not going to be any coordination or discussion between vendors, but what we typically do now that they're all virtual is we ask everybody to put their information in the chat so we can capture who's there and what company and everything. And so sometimes that's a beneficial part where you can go and you can see what other companies are there. And if you typically do sub work as an MFD, well, you might be able to find primes that are participating in that meeting, and you can connect with them because they obviously are showing interest in the solicitation. So that's your opportunity to see who may be interested. When will this happen? The information for when it will happen will be found in the solicitation with a Teams link. It's all done virtually via Teams. And if there is going to be one, it will be in the solicitation when it is posted. And just to make sure everybody knows, it is not guaranteed that there will be a pre-bid or pre-submission conference for every solicitation. My general approach that I did, and also how a lot of people do it, is if it's the same service that has happened for the past 20 years, and it's just almost an exact replica of the previous one, and you always have the exact same vendors respond, then typically something like that, like if it's for stone and it's a repetitive solicitation, something like that, people won't necessarily have a meeting for. But when it gets into stuff like RFPs, where you have to get into a little bit more technical stuff in order to make sure you're responding correctly, then usually departments will have them. But just pay attention to the solicitation. It will note in there if there will be or won't be a conference for those. So another piece is being responsive and responsible. Prior to award, after we receive bids and proposals, one of the responsibilities of the departments and procurement is to make sure that you are responsive to the bid or the IFB or RFP, and also a responsible vendor. So if you do not, if you don't meet all the submission requirements, there's literally like bid submissions, and it's a list for you, and you missed one of those, you're not responsive. If the quotation sheet says you have to have a percentage in there for a catalog discount, and you don't put that percentage in there, you're not responsive. Now, on the responsible side is usually when it gets back to the department and they're doing their review. And if they had asked for financial documents because whatever it is they need has to take that into consideration, and they start looking through things, they might they might come to a conclusion that this isn't a good fit, or if they reach out to references and they start, getting feedback that, there were issues with staying on schedule or not performing or whatever, like that's where they have to do their due diligence to make sure that the fit between the vendor and the county is going to be right based on what's needed, what's expected, and what's out there for how the vendor has performed in the past. On to the next slide. Resources and links. This is just a list of them because this presentation will be given to you guys, but these are essentially links that I'm going to be going over after we complete the PowerPoint, and I'll touch base on them when I get into our website. And then the last one is just the monthly virtual open house that I had mentioned. It's the third Wednesday at 10 a.m. of every month. Next link. I mean, not link, next slide. All right, so summary of this entire presentation. Use the resources that are available. There are a lot of resources online. I'll show you that. And you can use in-person or virtual or call us. Like, we're all available. We are able to take meetings in our office if you're interested. You can reach out to us and ask for a Teams meeting if you have particular questions. There are resources out there. Don't be afraid to use them. Follow the guidance and requirements. The details are in the solicitations. You have to make sure you read and respond to all of them. That's part of the requirement of the vendor, to make sure that you cover everything the department has requested. Ask questions before and after. So the before is on the technical or non-technical, to the technical or non-technical contact, which will be in the solicitation. The technical one would be the person with the department. The non-technical one would be the person at procurement. So anything related to like the substance of the solicitation would go towards the department. Anything related to, hey, what exactly do I have to do with the MFD form? That would come to us. And I highly recommend that you put any and all questions you have in writing to those contacts, because that makes it a lot easier to keep track of what's been asked. It's not, misconstrued via a phone call or anything like that. Then you can also ask your questions at the pre-bid and pre-submission conferences, like I mentioned. Again, even on that, it would be a good habit that if you ask a question there, it does not hurt to follow up and put that in writing to make sure it is clear that you have sent something you requested or asked a question, and it's there. And then after, for RFPs, you're able to request a debriefing. So I will show you where the guidelines for that are on our website, but that is something that if you don't, if you're not awarded and you're like, I really don't know what it is I did wrong or what could have helped me, you have that opportunity for a debriefing. And then the last thing is keep trying. Just because you don't win one the first go round doesn't mean you can't win it ever. So one of our key things is, like, this past fiscal year, 51% were new vendors. So that shows you it's not, there's a misconception that the same people always get it. It's not necessarily the case. So always continue trying. Next slide. This is just the contact information for all of the managers in our office. You can reach out to us if something that you ask us would be better handled by the specific buyer or specific program manager. We can obviously get you in touch with them. So this is just for your reference. And then the next one, I think, is just my general question slide. Yeah, so I think people have been asking some questions in the chat, and I believe that answers are being given. I can't keep up with that while I'm talking, but I do want to quickly go through our website so that I can show you through that. And then if you have questions for that, I can, I can also respond to any questions that may come up from what I'm showing you. So, all right, Grace, I'm going to take over sharing my screen. If somebody can just confirm that you see that.
Yeah, we see it.
Okay.
Yep,
Awesome.
you're good.
All right. So like I said, there are links in the presentation, but they all ultimately lead back to this in some way, shape, or form, because everything you need can be found on our website. We've tried to provide as many resources as possible. So if you go to our home, this is it. You've got an announcement, calendar events, everything. It gives you the general overview, and the way, there are links in here that are found in multiple different pages across our website. This is a little more information about us, some of the main numbers and reports and stats if you want to get into it a little bit further. But the key thing for y'all would be vendor resources, the local MFD and wage details, like the reporting, but the requirements within the solicitations, and then solicitations and contracts. So where I'll start, because this is the most information for you, is your vendor resources. You have access to getting certified, registering your business, understanding the socioeconomic program comparisons, everything for a new vendor. This is where you start. General guidelines. This, for instance, is exactly what I was talking about. Here's the information about the IFB workflow. So if I pull it up here, and I will zoom in a little bit on this. So this just gives you an idea of what goes on. Why does it take so long? What should the expectation be on how long it takes? And you'll see that there are multiple people that have to touch these things. So the legend down here tells you by color expectation for the length of time. And then the shapes are based on, who is the owner of that at the time. So this at least walks you through the general process. Every solicitation has its own quirks, so there may be back and forth on a couple of these items, but ultimately this is the layout for it. If you typically deal with IFBs, then I recommend you sit down and take a good look at this. There are some processes we're looking at right now to try to make things more efficient that may shift these some in the future. But at least for a general start and a basic understanding now, this is where you can find the IFB process. And then switching back, we have the RFP here, which is all the same concept, but obviously just the different steps and the explanation for this one specifically and what you should expect. Here's the link to the laws and regulations. The debriefing that I was talking about, there's a link that specifically lays out exactly what you should expect from that, how you should ask for it, what you'll get out of it, what you won't get out of it, because there are different things with RFPs and proposals and information provided that is not going to be shared with others. So just read through this so you can understand, and then consider whether or not it's something that's beneficial to you after you go through an RFP process, and if you don't win that at that time. Pocket guide, how to, like these are all individual things broken down. How to videos, you can go here. We have a lot of YouTube videos that are either our online open houses or talking about specific programs, like learn about the Minority Female Disabled Owned program. Like we try to put as much information out there. By no means does this cover everything, because it's a massive amount of information that we can provide to people. And if there are any particular things that could be helpful to you that you may not see on here, but let us know. That doesn't mean we can't put something else together that could benefit the vendors, if it's just a place you can go and review it without having to ask us any questions. Like this is supposed to be kind of a self-service type thing that we try to do on our with our website. More information on the businesses, etc. Going to local MFD wage, this just gives more of the details of our programs. I believe Grace covered a lot of this last week, so I will not spend time reviewing that. I will go to the solicitations and contracts though. The solicitation tracker is something that Ash mentioned at the beginning of this. Ultimately, you can go in and you can put in either a solicitation number or the title of something. And let me see what is there for fireworks. I know we just recently had a new solicitation that was awarded, actually. I have the number as well. So 87. So this is a pizza tracker that Ash referenced. So for fireworks displays, Recreation just put it out. This gives you the breakdown of all the different steps, when it's due, when the awardee was posted, what the steps are. So right now it's in the contract execution phase where the awardee's been posted, but there's that award, the award time that any of the additional award documents have to be addressed and all of that. So this just gives you a quick rundown of the status of these. And again, technical and non-technical contacts are here for those. So this is a tool that you can use if you want to quick go to certain solicitations and get that update. Now, formal solicitations, that's the IFBs, RFPs above $100,000. You go here, you can either use a solicitation tracker, or this shows you all of the ones that are active. Notice it shows you if amendments have been issued. You need to make sure that you respond to those. It shows you if there's pre-submission conference. You can go and you can look at the general scope as just like a snippet and say, oh, that's great. I'll look into this more because that really fits with me. Or nope, this is not my thing. Don't need to worry about downloading and opening up the entire thing. So this is a good place to review regularly so you know what's out there and active at that time. Going back, your informal and opens. So like I said, this is the informals and opens are handled primarily by the departments. But what we do is we do post them on our website. So everything is all in the same location that you can find it. And we have it posted, but when you go and you click on a certain a certain link, it'll give you the additional information for it. So digital library card. So you see how it's click here to download the informal solicitation. If I click there, then it'll take you to the department's, either a department website where they may have multiple different attachments, or it pulls it up for you like this. And there's your informal. That's what you need to respond to. Then open solicitations. Like I said, these are the ones that they're just out there. And if you go to outpatient substance abuse, look at that. All right, you can go to that website. It takes you to HHS, and these are all of theirs. I mean, they weren't the best example because that's a massive amount, but you see these that have the older numbers. That means that those have been up there for quite a while. So just pay attention to this, because there could be opportunities here that if you feel as though it fits you, you're okay with those prices and you're okay with those terms and conditions and expectations, you can sign up if it's up here. It's essentially saying, yep, if you're good, we review all your stuff, then you're good to go and you can get a contract. I make that sound really simple. It's not totally that simple, but the concept is that they're open to way more vendors that are capable, pass all the requirements of the documentation and the solicitation, you're in good standing, etc. And that, give me 1 second, I'm trying to, so bid tabulations, proposed awardees, that's the general information you can get. I'm trying to, why don't I remember? Hold on. I know I saw, why am I not remembering where the projections is? Because I know I just looked at it this morning.
You can click on formal solicitations on that
Ah,
page.
I was about to say, there we go. Thank you, Bethany.
You're
I
welcome.
know I just looked at it this morning because I talked to Sharonda about the information too. So this is one thing under projections. This gives you an idea of what's coming up. It's not out there yet, but it's being worked on because it's in our workload and when you can expect to see it. Does not guarantee that it's coming out at that point. This is just a, hey, heads up. So you can review this on a regular basis and try to get an understanding of what may be coming down the pipeline. But you can search it by department, solicitation type, if it's required to be LSBRP, et cetera. So there's information to detail this. There's information available for you to break it down into smaller things. You don't have to look at the whole list, but this is another tool for you to know what's coming up next. And that's a quick rundown. And we have, I believe, 10 minutes. I think this goes till 12, or did I already go over my time?
No, you're good, Melissa. It's probably good some time for questions and wrap up.
Yeah, that's why I was trying to hustle on that one. And I think, okay, I will let somebody coordinate the questions that may have come in. Or if anybody has
I can read some of the questions. We've managed to answer most of the questions along the way. There are a couple questions about the presentation being available for participants. We will send this to the chamber, and chamber may be able to make it available.
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll distribute them to those that registered. So if you've gotten this from someone else and you haven't registered, just send us an email and asking us if you want a copy. Otherwise, we won't be able to have your email unless it's from the list from Eventbrite registrations.
Okay, thank you. There are a question about if our solicitations being posted on EMMA, that is the Maryland's state's e-Maryland marketplace that used to be called. Yes, our formal solicitations are also posted on EMMA, but our full list of solicitations are always posted on our own procurement website. And someone asked about what are the REOIs? Are they similar to the sources sought on the federal site? Ash has already answered that question. If you have any further question, you can put it in the chat.
Okay. Is that it in the chat?
I think I just saw a question come in. I was looking at it about IT opportunities. We have the LCAT series and the MCAT series, which are the Montgomery County local only consulting and technology services contracts, as well as the broader, not reserved just for Montgomery County ones. And the person who asked the question is correct. I think the MCATs were in the evaluation stage still.
Yeah.
So in terms of other opportunities, I believe the answer to that is sometimes there are, but the bulk of that type of work is handled through those series. But when we have something that falls outside of it, on occasion I've seen a department like Health and Human Services put out some specific work that they need done. But by and large, if it would be covered by the scope of those larger sort of blanket agreements, then it usually ends up getting worked through there, which is why, by the way, we make such a big deal out of it every year. We host an entire fair just for the LCATs and MCATs, because we know that it's like your once in a, sometimes 5-year opportunity to get in. And this year we increase it from eight vendors in each to 12 vendors in each. which, to be honest with you, reduces the amount of work that each vendor would now get, even if they do get selected, right? Because there's a bigger pool within, but at least it gives more people the opportunity to get into that pool. Grace, did you have any other insight on the MCATs and LCATs outside of that?
Yes, so we had similar question yesterday from our open house. LCATs was awarded late last year, and there are 12 of them. In my last presentation, I did show how to see who are the incumbent of those contracts. And then the MCATs, which is not non-local small business reserved IT services contracts, we're also selecting 12 contractors, and they are still being evaluated. The current contract will expire in June of this year. So they really would be awarding those contracts very quickly before the current contract expires. We have not received the proposed awardee from the department yet, but I'm sure they're working on evaluating them quickly. They have received a lot of proposals. That's why it took them so long.
Yeah, I believe the number was close to 50 or something like that. It was very high. Could you speak to, if appropriate, excuse me, if it is possible for, even if these vendors are selected, for somebody to reach out to them to look for work potentially as a subcontractor, because they do have a relatively high subcontracting goal, correct, for minority companies?
Correct. Yeah, so for example, IT services would be our professional services category, and the percentage goal for them to have to subcontract to minority-owned businesses, I want to make sure I'm giving you the right number, but they are required to have a certain percentage of minority-owned subcontractors on their contract. So once these prime contractors are selected, you are welcome to reach out to them, and you can always say procurement office sent to me to reach out to you. I'm certified a minority or female-owned business, and I want to do business with you. So that's part of their requirement to have contract with us, and it will hopefully get you some opportunity to get some business from the county as a subcontractor. So professional services goal, subcontracting goal is 19%.
All right, if there's no other questions, I guess we'll allow the chamber to close this out. And obviously, next week is a session also about Montgomery County, but it's not about my office. It is about doing business with Montgomery College, MCPS, and just the other entities in Montgomery County outside of county government.
All right, awesome. This was great, you guys. I really thank you for bringing this to our membership. Again, if we have a whole slew of programming coming up available for our members. So again, subscribe to our Eventbrite, subscribe to our newsletter, become a member to get access to make sure that you don't miss throughout April. Melissa, do we don't have that flyer yet, do we? Or do we? I know we were working on. Okay, so it's just stay tuned. If you're on this, you're probably going to be added to our newsletter anyway, so you'll be able to receive this. But still, subscribe to our Eventbrite so you stay up to date on what's going on, and of course, become a member. Thanks again to Montgomery County Office of Procurement, and again, stay tuned for any content that we have. We will be providing the recording to all of our attendees. And thanks again for attending.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.